What's up, guys? We have another game with the black pieces against Chess Your Ass 2, 1286. Okay, so we're almost fighting at 1300. And on move 2, they go a4. What are you going to do? So we're just going to put a pawn in the center and ignore him and continue developing. We don't care about the crazy stuff. Now they put a pawn in the center, and their move weakens this square before. Maybe we'll try to use it later in the game. But for right now, we are going to bring our bishop out, close the pawn chain, and continue our development and castle. Our opponent opens up his bishop's diagonal. No real drawback. We do the same thing. He gives us this check. Doesn't threaten anything. It actually, the drawback is it walks into this, which is perfectly fine move for us. So there's no point for him to do that. He brings his bishop back and offers the trade. I'm not going to waste time moving this. Natural move would be to drop it back, but I'm not even going to do that. I'm going to let him take if he wants and do it, and switch up our pawn structure. I don't really care. I'm going to develop my other knight, and he doesn't even take. So I develop my knight to the center. He develops his minor piece, but because it doesn't threaten anything, and the drawback is it's kind of being stifled by my pawns, and it also blocks his pawn because he wants to go c4 and challenge this, but now he can't because his knight's in the way. So I'm happy about that, and it's my turn. Okay, I'm going to go bishop d6 and put my bishop in the center. He develops the bishop, but it's not like real developing because it's still kind of horrible and it has no squares, and it's kind of a waste of time. So now we get a free move kinda, and we still need to castle, so let's keep things simple and let's castle. And I like black's position better than white's. White jumps his knight forward. What does this threaten? Doesn't threaten anything, it just puts some pressure on the light squares, but that's not a problem. We have a variety of things we can do, one of which is to move this knight because this knight's hanging, but it's not necessary. Another thing we can do, kick the knight. Another thing we can do, bring the bishop back. Another thing we can do, trade the bishops. This forces him to take with the pawn because his queen's not in contact, and I did that because I wanted to play e5 and I couldn't play e5 with my bishop hanging here. And so he pre-moves h4. I should have gone h6 and taken his knight in that case. So he pre-moves this, which is ridiculous. But my goal was to open up the center. That's what I've been playing for. That's why I gave away that bishop right there, so I could play this move. Okay, so he ignores me. So what am I gonna do? If I take, then he gets double isolated pawns. That looks horrible for him. It's a forcing move. It opens up his king, and now black is better. So it's the most natural to give a check here. You have a queen, you have a rook. The rook is the most natural, but there is some pressure on this pawn, so I could see a case being made for actually not giving the check this turn. Maybe going queen here, and then putting this rook here. Because even if you check him now and he goes bishop here, I don't know, it doesn't seem like the end of the world, although maybe it is. Maybe it is actually. Oh, because you had knight. You didn't even have knight here because of the queen. Maybe you had bishop here. Takes. Okay, so yeah, it might have been worth throwing this in. But he moves his king to the side, so now he can't castle. But he doesn't walk into any weird pin stuff like I was calculating. So he moves to the side. So we want to get our queen in the game. We could kick this knight if we think it's annoying. Give our king some space. It's kind of a natural move. This knight's pretty bad, so we do want to improve our stuff. So what we're going to do is kick this knight, try to get it to go back here. That way his queen is cut off and we could jump our knight in and relocate, but he doesn't do that. He goes for some like new age fishing pole technique. Not just the H pawn, but also the F pawn. So takes. This is insane. So yeah, I'm not gonna actually do that. That might even work for him somehow, some way. I'm gonna get rid of this knight because it's making me very mad. I'm gonna relocate it here or here. So he moves more pawns in front of his kings. Doesn't threaten anything, and the drawback is it softens up his king. I also now have this opportunity to do something like that, which is interesting. But I'm going to take, and yeah, then I have nowhere for my knight. I'm gonna actually relocate it here because this square is kind of not good at the moment because it's stifled. However, here it hits this pawn, so he retreats his knight. So now his king is just weak, and there's no attack or pressure on my king. So that's kind of weird. That's the drawback of his move. Also, it releases control again of this, so now I have that the light squares. He is protecting this though. That's something to note. But now the light squares are loose that he put all of his pawns on dark. So I'm going to jump my knight in, get a little closer to his king. I can support it with a pawn. I also can throw my queen in maybe. I'm thinking of queen in. So he moves his knight again, opening up the queen. So he's going back and forth. He thinks he's funny. The difference is I'm not going to take his knight. And I'm not going to let him take mine. I think I'm going to solidify. That way he can't kick this knight other than a knight trade. And now he can't get his queen in. So now that knight was actually hanging. No more fishing pole nonsense. So he goes back and I just got a free tempi. I'm going to bring my queen in with a threat on the pawn. Connect my rooks. And material's even, but my king is safer. My pieces are better. So he goes here, which threatens my bishop. That's the threat. The drawback is it hangs the knight with a pawn. Okay. Thanks for the piece. That's crazy. How do you not see there's a pawn here though? Okay, so he takes back, but now this pawn's hanging, right? So I'm going to continue moving closer to his king, taking stuff, opening my rooks. And okay, this bishop's not doing anything here, but I can relocate it later, and either way, it's protecting all of my dark squares. It's a beacon of dark light. Okay, he moves his bishop, pins the knight. That's quite clever. To the queen. That's the threat. No real drawback. It's a pretty good move, I would say. Our knight is hit twice, so it's threatened to be captured. So we could defend it with the bishop. He moved his bishop from here, which was controlling this diagonal. Even though this diagonal's horrible, it's only one square, that square was kind of important for this royal fork. So bishop here would defend the knight, but you're still in the pin. It's gonna be annoying, so it's probably better to win the queen. And then we're gonna take it with check, and now we don't want to lose our queen. We do have this check, but after king goes up, do we have a follow-up? I'm not convinced, so I'm just gonna defend my knight, which is being attacked twice. He can't add a third attacker other than his king, which is cut off. He can attack my bishop though, which defends it, but these are double isolated. So when I drop it back, it's perfectly safe in between these pawns, and I am secure. Also, his king is in this x-ray, right? So he moves his king out of the x-ray because I would have had discoveries. And again, this is pinned. If I move my queen, then I will undefend the knight and he'll take it. So we either have to, we have this idea of like a5, bishop back, queen here, that way you don't lose it, but that's roundabout. Let me see what happens if I just throw my rook in here and touch the knight real quick, just to see how he reacts. If he goes king back, I'll go here, maybe get a free doubling. Why free? Because then he walks back into discovery, he's gonna have to waste time moving back, so I get a free rook e7 basically, if he does this. But if he doesn't do that, now my knight is free to move because it's not pinned. Oh, I have no time. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna blunder something for sure. Okay, so this is hanging, this is hanging, this is a move. What else is a move? And king stays on light. Okay, he's hitting my queen. So I move my queen up one, hit the knight. He goes back, hanging. Now the bishop's hanging and this pawn's hanging. Also, I could just take the knight with my rook, make life easier. But I want the bishop to get off the diagonal first. Maybe I go c4 and then let's shut the bishop out with this. And then let's give up the exchange sack. Give this check. Right? Maybe if we can get in g4, that would be desirable. But now that he opened up the h file for us, we could swing the other rook over and go for that type of mate. Also, our minor pieces are kind of on the wrong side of the board for mate, but that's fine. I'll move him over. I think actually I'm going to throw this in because he can't go towards us because of the bishop diagonal. Also, now it'll be pinned. He has to go away up. That's a pin, as I mentioned. That's another pin. Queens are basically bishops in disguise. We take those, we develop, we give a ladder check, we go here. Oh, his pawn's in the way. Check, pick up the bishop. We'll bring in the knight, and there's nothing really to say. This is game over. We're just bringing in our pieces, and voila. Here, I'm just made a random move, but maybe here. Actually, that's not checkmate. That's annoying. Here, here. There, that's checkmate. That's better, right? I mean, he was playing fine until he just hung his pieces for no reason whatsoever. So he opens up with e4. Let's see if we can catch Pukas 1266 in an Alekhine. No one will go for it. This is insane. So he goes knight c3. What is this? Okay, so we'll just go d6, some type of perk transition. Okay, d4. Everything is on track to being a perk setup. Let's see what he does. He pushes a very early e5. The reason we put our pawn on d6 is to take, so that if this happens, we trade queens. You see this? And this trade of queens cannot be good for him because we have knight g4 hitting the pawn, and then the natural developing move, bishop g7, hitting the pawn, and his knight is back on d1 where his queen was. So he develops and protects. So kind of in like a Budapest Gambit, we had another third attacker on the pawn, and he doesn't have a third defender. We get our pawn back. We don't get our pawn back, we get a pawn. We win a pawn. So he long castles. He's just nicely developed. We don't want to get caught in any funny business. So let's castle before we get pinned and some weird stuff happens. I don't want to run into that. Okay, now it's not a pin, so I don't really care. Let's see. He's attacking our knight, but it's no big deal. Where do we want our bishop? We could throw a pin to him. We could just develop it to a normal square. Let's throw the pin maybe. I don't see a downside. It connects our rooks. We don't have to take, but it adds some pressure. And if he takes, we can always backtrack with the knight. Maybe we could take with the pawn. He does this, but don't I? If I take a knight and he takes a bishop, do I have a good jump? I mean, I have jumps, but they're not amazing. I could also take this and ruin his pawn structure. I am up a pawn. So, being up a pawn is one advantage. If I can mess up his pawn structure, that'll be another advantage. And then the endgame will be easier. I don't want his bishops to get active, so I'm not going to take this pawn. I'm going to just try to, I want to trade bishops, so this would be a move if it was defended. Let's see. What can I do? Well, let me activate my piece. Increase the number of squares that I control. All for a trade. And contest the d file. So this can't be bad. So now all my pieces are pretty decent. This rook, yeah, it's not like fully free, but it is defending this. And that's kind of necessary, so. This knight is free to go. It was free to go. I could take with the knight. That'll hang a pawn though, so I'm going to take with the pawn because it stops this knight. This is not desirable. It also gives him, you know, some nice outposts for his squares, but I deem it to be okay. Also because I'm going to have to let him into my encampment and start taking stuff. Could play f6, but I don't really want to. I do want this bishop though. I could take this pawn and it hits his rook. Let's just do that. He'll get his stuff in, but I don't really see that many good alternatives, so let's take a pawn, forcing move. He can now take one of two pawns. I'm gonna end up giving up all four of these, so that's fine. I'll see if I can, you know, still win in the end game. Okay, so he's still attacking a pawn. What to do? I want to get my rooks in the game. What's the best way to get my rooks in the game? I'm not sure actually. Like, what's the right square? And do I ever take the knight? This takes. I give up a really strong bishop to mess up his pawns, but that releases control of this square, so I can go here. Not my favorite. I could go here. Then he takes here, and I lose an exchange, although, yeah, I still lose the exchange, so that doesn't work. I could offer a trade of rooks. Let's say takes, bishop takes. I still can't infiltrate, so why did I put it there? Interesting. There are no real moves. Like, what are the moves here? This. So here. Even if I bring it in. I honestly have no idea what to do. This is not even the right. I guarantee this is not the right move because it lets him. It removes control of this square, but I don't know. Let's see what he does. We'll just make a pass. We'll give a pass. It's because there was literally no square to put my rook, except for here. Maybe I should have just put my rook there. Yeah, probably. Who knows? Maybe it'll confuse him. If he takes this with the rook, then I actually have this move, so it kind of walks into that, right? I hit his rook. I kind of saw this and figured, okay, he has to take with the bishop, because, okay, but he took with the rook. And even though material was equal, I was going to say my bishop versus knight endgame, I'd have the advantage. But he doesn't even play it correctly. He just hangs the bishop. So he does take another pawn, but he hangs a full bishop, his best minor piece by far. And now I'm up a piece, and now I'm just completely winning, of course. Now, if you trade all the pawns, you might not be able to convert, so you have to be careful. But I don't see how he's going to trade all three of these, so he has a 3-on-1, but I'm not going to give him time to make use of it. He has weak pawns here. I have a good bishop, great bishop here. So he moves his knight towards the center, I guess threatening a check or so. I'm going to throw in a good-looking forcing move. His king can't come closer because of my rook, so it has to go away. Now when it does go away, which is forced, maybe, you know, if you double rooks, that's checkmate. Also, like, if you take and he takes and you give this check, let's just develop the rook. I, the king, coordinate with the bishop, which will probably stop. Okay, now he makes it way worse by weakening the dark squares around his king, which threatens nothing. It just makes this bishop super strong. And now I want to move my bishop before he locks it in. You know, I'll move my bishop, and then if he gives me the check, I can put my queen there in g7. So where's the safe square for my bishop? Like here or here, but this blocks the rook. So like here. And then we have king g7, and then he can't put a piece here. And you could even go f6 if you want, support the bishop. And he doesn't have anything to contest it because he gave up his bishop. And now it's just beaming down the board. Okay, so he moves his rook. What does this threaten? He threatens the knight, but does it really threaten the knight? If he takes the knight and we go check, that's actually checkmate. So we're going to let him take the knight. We're going to blunder the knight. We're going to move our king up like we said we were going to. Improve our position, control the f6 square. Our rooks are placed well. Our bishop placed well. Our knight was placed well. Only our king. So we improved our king. He walks right into our checkmate. Thank you for that checkmate. So we gained some points, win another simple game in the end game. We keep on climbing. Submit your games, your rapid games for move by move analysis.